So I think the majority of people are here already. So welcome to the Cybersecurity Awareness Workshop. My name is Jasper. I'll be your presenter today. Give me a moment. We'll wait a few more minutes before we start. I think we'll start now. So let me just go through. This will be our table of content. We'll be touching on the introduction to cybersecurity, understanding cybersecurity, the type of cybersecurity teams, introduction to malware, introduction to social engineering, and what are the types of social engineering attacks and how to spot them. The tools on how to protect yourself from social engineering attacks, with a tip of setting up a tripwire in your computer and some bonus content. So to start, cybersecurity is the practice of defending computers, servers, and mobile devices, electronics, networks, and data from malicious attacks. The cybersecurity is different from information security. As I mentioned earlier, cybersecurity is the practice of protecting and defending the use of electronic systems and cyberspace from cyber attacks, whereas information security is the protection of information and information systems from unauthorized access. In order to provide what is called the CIA triad, this stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. This triad is also used to conduct security assessments, but we will not go into that today. So to sum it up, cybersecurity's main concern is to protect data that is found in electronic form, while InfoSec is protecting the CIA of data. However, InfoSec is often considered a subset of cybersecurity. So in cybersecurity, there are multiple domains such as network, application, information and operational security, as well as disaster recovery and business continuity, and end user education. So I'll give a brief explanation of each of the domains. Network security is the practice of securing a computer network from intruders, whether it be targeted attackers or malware. Application security focuses on keeping software and devices free of threats. A compromised application could provide access to the data it's designed to protect. And as mentioned earlier, information security is the protection of the CIA triad of data. Operational security is a risk management process that encourages managers to view operations from the perspective of an adversary in order to protect sensitive data from falling into the wrong hands. So disaster recovery and business continuity defines how an organization responds to a cyber security incident or any event that causes data loss. End user education addresses the most unpredictable cybersecurity factor, which are humans. Educating people to follow good security practices such as deleting suspicious email attachments or not plugging in unknown USB drives. To further elaborate on what is confidentiality, integrity, and availability, confidentiality is the protection of personal data. It means to keep client information between you and the client only. Integrity is the context of computers, in which it is the method of ensuring that the data is real, accurate, and safeguarded from unauthorized modifications. Availability refers to the ability of users to access the information in the correct format in a specific location. So we'll have a video for you today. I hope you guys can catch the audio through my microphone because there's an issue with the inside speaker.
Would you be comfortable living in a house that someone else had the key to? What if an underground tunnel led into it from a public park, where its windows could never quite close all the way? Would you trust it with your safety and your privacy? The internet is that house. This is not to say never go into the house, but rather you should know the hazards before you store all of your valuables there, and do what you can to protect them. So why is it insecure, and why can't we just fortify it until it's safe? Well, first of all, the internet was not originally built to be what it is today. It's like someone decided to expand a shoebox into a skyscraper. The internet originally developed when computers were huge and so expensive to own that only universities, big businesses, and a few governments had them. The point, originally, was to let these massive supercomputers talk to each other. And as soon as two computers could send information back and forth, we had a network. The network gradually grew until personal computers emerged in the 1980s, and then it exploded. Soon, people were not just talking to each other, but also exchanging money, playing games, reading news, shopping, and doing everything we associate with the internet today. Other devices started talking to the network too. Phones, cars, refrigerators, and elevators, and power plants, and much, much more. But the ease of all those devices talking to each other came at a price: security. One computer could send another instructions to delete everything on it or take it over. We call these viruses and malware. Or one person could steal another's identity by guessing, cracking, or extracting a password. Vulnerabilities such as these will never completely go away because they're built into the internet's very architecture. Criminals use them to steal billions of dollars, governments use them for surveillance, and hacktivists use them to further their political goals. Between 2004 and 2013, over 1 billion records of personal information were stolen or leaked through data breaches of major organizations. As a thought experiment, let's imagine what a perfectly secure internet might look like. Users would not be allowed to download or install anything onto their computers. All internet traffic would be monitored and regulated by bots and humans, massively limiting the number of websites you could visit. In order to log on to a website, you'd have to type in a 100-character password, submit a genetic sample, and whistle a tune. The servers that hold data would be kept in heavily armed fortresses on the move. And even with all these safeguards in place, some clever hacker would almost certainly still find a way in. The good news is, even with our flawed internet, there are simple things you can do to protect yourself. And there are a lot of people committed to making the internet more secure. In Nova's cybersecurity lab, you'll play.
So we'll be talking about this game later, but this is about it for the video. So I will show you something. It is a cyber map by Kaspersky. So this map is used basically to show a real-time cyber threat map around the world. It detects anti-spam, botnet activity, vulnerability scanning, on-demand scan, and basically everything else. You can have a look at the website. I'll be sending this link and all the links to the tools into the WhatsApp group later. So, as you can see, Malaysia is currently the 22nd most attacked country. Well, the first one, if I'm not mistaken, when I was checking, is Russia. So this is a fun little website developed by Kaspersky. You guys can play around with it. Wait. All right, let's continue. So the type of cybersecurity teams. Most people assume that the only field in cybersecurity is a hacker or just a blue team and red team. But in reality, cybersecurity is a very broad field, and it includes such as the more commonly known teams, such as the blue and red team, and the lesser known teams, purple, green, yellow, and white. Red team is basically the cliche of cybersecurity, as they are the ones that are considered hackers, or more accurately, ethical hackers. They focus on offensive security testing, which includes exploiting vulnerabilities, penetration testing, and social engineering. Blue teams can be considered the good guys in cybersecurity, in which they focus on defensive security, which are infrastructure protection, damage control, incident response, and operational security. It is basically red team or the attacking team, and blue team is the defending team. And there is a yellow team. Yellow team, which are often software builders, engineers, and developers, or system architects. They are people who build and design the system and integrate it to make business more efficient. To explain it in a cycle, basically yellow team builds it, red team breaks it, and blue team defends it. And which results in the yellow team fixing the issue. Like primary colors, the combination of the three colors make up the other teams, such as red and blue makes purple team, blue yellow makes green team, and red yellow makes orange team. Purple team is basically red and blue team combined, in which they facilitate improvements in detection and defense more efficiently by being the attacker as well as the defender. Orange team is to educate people such as to inspire coders and architects to be more security conscious by increasing their security awareness through education. Green team's ultimate purpose is to improve code-based and design-based defense capabilities for detection and incident response. While white team, at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, cybersecurity is dictated by governance, compliance, policy, and business requirements. And white team members are individuals who set the rules of engagement, organize the teams, set strategies, perform risk assessments, and set the plans, and monitor the progress. However, because they are considered the more corporate-focused team in cybersecurity, disagreements do tend to often happen between white team and the other teams, due to white team being less technical than the other teams. So now we'll go into malware. So a brief explanation. Malware is a computer program coupled with malicious intent. However, malware is just a generic term for different types of malware, such as the one shown in the figure. The fact about malware is they are just software or code that is purposely written to perform a task to meet their objective. It is usually written in C or C++ language. In earlier days, malware was less harmful and commercialized as IoT devices. And industries were not the norm. However, today everything is connected to the internet, from your TV, refrigerator, and even your car. Although this is not the main reason why malware is what they are today, the main reason is because of the amount of information stored in computer systems nowadays, such as bank information and other personal information that was not available in the previous century. So we'll go over the type of malware. So first, I'll just be going over a few types of malware. If you would like to read up on more of the malware, I would be able to send you an article. So firstly, we'll be talking about the Trojan. Trojan is basically a malicious software that disguises itself as a harmless software to the user. Trojans can be like free games where the user downloads and plays them. Well, the Trojan secretly installs malicious software into your computer. Adware is exactly what it sounds like. Adware is used to make money off advertisements. Now, spyware monitors your action on a computer system, such as monitoring your traffic, what websites are visited, or actions that are taken, like enabling your mic or camera. So we'll cover a more popular topic, which is ransomware. Ransomware is a malicious code that encrypts your file and holds the decryption key ransom. Unlike other malware, ransomware doesn't steal your data or file, but simply locks them. The ransoms are often paid with Bitcoin, as they are the most considered unregulated currency. The most popular malware that everyone might have read about was WannaCry on May 2017. Although it was a short-lived malware, it caused severe harm to a lot of computer systems. It targeted Windows operating systems, especially through an Eternal Blue exploit. It was also assumed that the Lazarus group from North Korea was behind the attack. It was found that WannaCry was created using Visual C++ 6.0. Now, what is Eternal Blue? Eternal Blue is an exploit that uses a vulnerability in Microsoft's server message block protocol. The NSA actually discovered this vulnerability quite a while ago, but did not inform Microsoft about it for more than 5 years until all the WannaCry situation went out of proportion and they forced their hand to reveal this vulnerability to Microsoft. So to brief on the other ones, as you can see, bugs is not really, sometimes it cannot be considered actually a malware. It is just either a type of error or flaw. A virus is the most common, as everyone knows. The entire purpose of a virus is to basically multiply itself, like actual virus, basically. So we'll go over the tools now. So these are the recommended tools that are used. Antiviruses are great if you need an extra layer of protection, but they are not necessary. They help, you can use them to scan malware or anything at all, but it is not a foolproof solution because antiviruses rely on their basically developers, where they detect the virus and they put it into a database so the antivirus knows how to detect. Basically treat it like your immune system. Your body cannot recognize a virus that's new. But if it's a virus that it has seen before, it knows how to deal with it. So the second way to mitigate your device from being infected via vulnerability in the application is to ensure frequent patching. Usually, frequent patching is basically your application. Sometimes they will have vulnerabilities or bugs that will leave an open door for hackers or opportunists to go into your systems. As I will show, you can use Patch My PC. I didn't know. So Patch My PC is a software I use to ensure all my applications are up to date. So it's a rather trusted application. As you can see, there are a fixed amount of applications they will select. I would perform the update, but it would be updating my Google Chrome, so the call will be. So here's a question for you. Do you think malware will be written for Windows OS be able to compromise Mac or Linux platforms? The answer is no. And before we move on, here's a fact about why malware is often associated with Windows and not Mac or Linux. It isn't because Mac or Linux is more secure than Windows. It is just simply less popular than Windows. Therefore, hackers would rather focus on Windows as it is the most popular operating system, as they are able to profit more from Windows than Mac or Linux at the current moment. So we'll take a 5-minute break. So now we'll talk about the types of cyber attacks. Before we continue, so cyber attack cases has spiked about 82.5% during the MCO period compared to the same time last year. That's about around March to June, give or take. So between March 18th and April 7th of 2020, Cybersecurity Malaysia had reported a total of 838 cybercrime cases, of which 18% of the cases involved local companies. I feel like there would be more going on now, but the reports of it have not been compiled yet. So for the type of cyber attacks, we will only be touching on phishing, SQL injection, password attacks, and drive-by. The rest may be covered in depth in a future workshop. So phishing messages are purposely crafted to get you to do something, like click a link to an email, to a compromised website, or open an attachment with malicious intent. Another form of phishing is spear phishing, which it removes a generic message, form a phishing campaign, and personalizes it to the victim. For this part, we will go into detail more later, as there will be examples on phishing emails and how to spot them properly. So SQL injection is a type of attack that makes it possible to execute a malicious SQL statement. These statements can then control a database server behind web applications. These attacks are used to bypass application security measures, in which they can go around authentication and authorization to modify or delete SQL data, or to retrieve the contents inside of an SQL database. A way to prevent this is to use safe programming functions that can make it impossible to inject into. The safe functions would be such as a parameterized query or stored procedures. So password attacks is exactly what it sounds. There are a couple of attacks, password attacks, but we'll only be touching on the brute force and dictionary attack, as they are considered the more common attacks. Brute force attack is basically an attacker submitting every possible password or passphrase combination in hopes of eventually getting it correct. It is basically a trial and error method to guess the login information or the encryption keys. A dictionary attack is a method of breaking into a system by systematically entering every word that exists in a dictionary as a password. However, it is rarely successful against systems that employ multi-word phrases, and almost impossible against systems that use a combination of uppercase and lowercase and symbols mixed up with numerals. This is why every password you enter requires a symbol, uppercase, lowercase, and number. Do you know you can still be hacked through a brute force attack? However, it will be longer. It will take longer as your password is more longer and complicated. I will show a application that that you can do the password checking. Hold on. I think it's this one. So simply, I'm just gonna enter the title of the workshop. This will give you an estimation of basically how long would it take to crack a password. So the term I entered here is cybersecurity. But in a dictionary attack, this would basically be caught straight up. So right now, I'm gonna change every E to a tree with a capital letter C. After having a capital letter C and every basically E in the statement becoming a tree, you see it would take about 100,000 years, but it also depends on the system limitation. As systems get more advanced, they crack passwords easier. Right now, there was a news about a supercomputer that could crack basically 1 million passwords in a few seconds. So that is very disturbing. So back to the other content. So a drive-by attack is when you visit a compromised website through a phishing link or just simply browsing while a malicious software is executing or downloading in the background. However, a few conditions have to be met for this to happen. First, the website must be hosting something malicious or compromised, and the program has to be downloaded to cause harm. So this will be it for a type of cyber attacks. If you would like to know more about other cyber attacks, do let me know. So now we'll go into the introduction to social engineering. So even we have done social engineering in our lives, such as when you were young or in secondary school, even maybe now, where your teacher told you that you cannot go home until you submit your work. So you randomly scribbled words into your homework and passed it up. The teacher then unknowingly lets you go home without checking your work. Social engineering isn't always for con artists or sociopaths, and it isn't always for malicious intent. It is basically just the concept of influencing someone's decision. It is also considered a term human hacking, but the attack can be done online, in person, or via other interactions. So social engineering isn't limited to just the cyberspace. So what are the types of social engineering attacks? Well, first, the word phishing is defined as sending out communications across mediums to convince someone to take action. The most popular story of phishing is basically the rich Nigerian prince email scam. But more often than not, in Malaysia and Singapore and more countries, I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it before, but it is basically a romance scam in which the intruder impersonates someone, maybe a girl or a guy, to gain your trust. After gaining your trust, then they'll scam you basically off of millions or thousands of dollars or ringgit. These scams are actually very common. If you read in the news, they tend to happen about once every month at the very least. So spear phishing is basically a more targeted phishing attack, as I mentioned earlier. Whaling attack is usually something used for agencies or corporate, where you impersonate someone of a high-ranking position. Then you try to persuade their normal employees or employees in their data sector to let you gain access to big value data. So maybe you call the tech support department and say, "Oh, you forgot your password." Then they give you your password, so you have an access to it. So phishing is basically, I think everyone has went through phishing before. Ever received a phone call where you picked up, the person says, "Oh, they're your family member, they're your friends, they're the bank, they lost your details, your detail got hacked, they require it to check." So phishing attacks is basically phishing over the phone. It's basically receiving a phone call from someone from the bank saying your bank account is compromised. Then they will say, "Oh, I need your bank account number or other sensitive information." Or they will pretend as a government official saying, "Oh, your personal information was stolen and they need to verify your identity. So can you provide maybe your mother's maiden name, your location, where you first lived?" Those would be security question checks. So those questions are very easy to acquire if you just do a bit of reconnaissance on people's basically social media, or you could phish them via this way. Baiting is a form of social engineering where an attacker takes advantage of a person's greed or curiosity by promising some sort of incentive. The example of baiting are like when you want to watch a movie that was basically released yesterday, but you don't have time to go to the cinema. So you tried searching online for it, then you found a site claiming to have it. So as a curious person, You went in and downloaded the video before the website got removed. And afterwards, you realize it was not the video you wanted, it is actually malware. So although these seem very common sense type of situations, there is still a lot of people that fall from this type of schemes. Another way is baiting doesn't even happen online. Baiting can be done by just randomly leaving a USB in the cafe, the library, just anywhere where would you have a curious victim to take the USB and open it on their computer. The USB will usually be carrying a sort of malware to gain access to the computer's data. So tailgating. Tailgating is basically like a typical bank robbery movie in which the robbers come into the bank ahead of time to scope out the place without doing anything illegal, such as they try to collect any information they can use later in the bank robbery, such as how many guards are there, where are they stationed, where are the cameras. In social engineering, tailgating is defined as when a person gains authorized access to an area that requires authentication by using deceptive tactics. Shoulder surfing is what it sounds like. Someone is attempting to gain confidential information by simply looking over your shoulder. It is basically like when you're texting and your friend looks at your text messages from your back. It works as the same concept. That is basically tailgating. So these situations would usually be used when you're maybe entering your credentials on your online bank account or ATM. Ways to combat this on your mobile devices at least is to buy a privacy screen so people cannot look from your back. So I'll be continuing the tools. So these will be the examples. As you can tell, these both messages are basically phishing emails. The first one would be considered phishing, and the second one as well. You can spot the phishing email by the context here. They are offering you something basically something very valuable. They try to take advantage of your gullibleness and your greed. These messages are actually taken out from my email, so they are as genuine as can be. So for this email is pretending to be PayPal, saying that there was an unusual access on the credit card attached to my PayPal account, and if I press resolve the account application, it will either lead me to a compromised website where afterwards I enter my information, it will be sent to them, or it will install malware on my computer. But there was an issue when this came out. This was a giveaway for his account, as well as this. So we'll show you a side-to-side comparison. So these both are basically emails from Apple. I'll give you about a minute to look at the differences, then I'll highlight them out. Okay, so let me just show you the difference. First, the easiest giveaway is basically the use of special symbols or special text. Apple would never reply a message through this email, at least, as it already says no reply. That's the easiest giveaway. The other one is, of course, the email address. It's email.care. If you look at this, it's no reply email.apple.com. Another giveaway is the logo. Third one is as the same as this, they use different wording. Sometimes there will also be grammar issues, or the excessive use of these symbols. Grammar issues would also be prevalent in these type of phishing emails. This would be considered spear phishing, if I'm not mistaken. So here's an example of Scareware. I think everyone has encountered Scareware before, where you enter a basically unsecure website. Well, not even an unsecure website, a website that has pop-up advertisement. After you click on it, it will lead you to a pop-up advertisement. You're telling, oh, your iPhone is infected. You have to download this, install different stuff. It scares you to thinking, oh, your computer is actually infected and you need to resolve it immediately. So this is the type of scams they will try to use on you. Some of them require you to, oh, you have to download this APK file. For that one, I doubt a lot of people would fall for it, but usually the main targeted victims for these would be elderly people, as they do not understand the concept. They would assume it is actually their device infected, or if you visit a recent adult site, that's written here. So here's a tool to protect yourself. If you're the kind of person that usually forgets their password or has to write it down somewhere or even on your computer, it is recommended you use a password manager because it uses a encryption to store all your other passwords and is only accessible with a master password. The master password should be something complicated, but it can just you must be the only one that knows it and remembers it. Since it's the only password you have to remember, it is also recommended to change the password every few months. Using a password manager is good when you either have spyware installed on your computer or malware. So if you have a password in a Google Doc or just a normal text file, people can access the file and basically get your password. Or if you have it written somewhere in your room, maybe when you have a house party, friends over, they stumble upon the password, and as a joke, they log into your account and basically prank you. So here is a couple of tools. This will be a Virus Total, My Trash Email. Virus Total is a website that allows you to upload or send in a URL for it to analyze through an antivirus database to detect if any of the viruses are marked as malicious. However, it is always not a guarantee, as I will show you later. My Trash Email is a temporary email you can use to maybe register for an account that you want to do a temporary task, maybe signing up a form, getting a free gift, but you don't want your email to be given away. So you create an anonymous email to receive the information. Usually people use it to phish as well, but it's usually an easy giveaway due to the email address. But it is only used for basically accessing, getting codes or research material that you do not want your main email to be used. So for now, I will show you how both of these work. So for Virus Total, I grabbed the malicious link from one of my emails. If you run through it here, it will go through all the antivirus database. As you can see, Bitdefender is here, Avira, and basically most of the common antiviruses. And this antivirus has detected it as malicious, as spam. But not every malicious link will get detected. As you can see, for a fact, I know this link is malicious and compromised, but none of the antiviruses detect it. So it is actually a hit or miss defense. It is never a guarantee. For the key password, I'll actually show you it here. So I'll be providing a link for these in the WhatsApp group, or if you're not in the WhatsApp group, do let us know. Then we will just send you the email. Here you go. This is my trash email. So you can just randomly create a trash email such as, let's just say, so you'll basically get data through this email. If anyone sends you anything, it will be retrieved through here. So it's considered a more safe domain. For this one, it's not only URL, you can also search files or search random domains, IP addresses, file hashes. So this is really useful if you want to play around with how suspicious files like malware and everything else is automatically detected through antiviruses. There's also web extensions and APIs if you would like to use it. So for this, right now I'll show you a tip of tripwiring your computer. Tripwiring is basically rigging a file to send a message to your email. So you could use this if you have a suspicion that someone might have access to your account. Browser scanner would provide you with more information of who and where they access the information. So after it generated the canary token, let's say I want to open an MS file. I download it. And I can just drag it here. Make it more enticing, maybe call it password doc. You could basically store fake passwords here to make it look realistic. After storing it here, it will still notify you again if you open it a second time. So as you can see, I just opened the document. So let me go to my email. It usually takes some time to send a canary token here. And it told me that one of my canary drops was triggered. I was using a HTTP. When did it happen? The memo I wrote in. Basically, the source IP address. And what was the version of any software they had on the computer they were using to open the file. So as mine would be 64-bit. These using MS Office 15 and basically all these information. This would be useful for more in-depth tracking if you do realize that someone has access to your account. So for now, we'll go into the Nova games. You guys can play around with this. This will just be a quick demonstration. So you can just use a guest pass. This is a fun way to learn about cybersecurity, I would say. This was the first thing I used to play before. You basically act as the CTO of a startup company. As I'll just quickly show you the site. You guys can play with it later. So it basically, as you can see, which part update antivirus or not. So I'll just randomly choose it like this. This is just letting you understand the concept. But after this introduction round, you get to play basically different challenges and learn stories. There will be password cracking or social engineering. Social engineering would be basically checking emails, seeing what's wrong here. After reading this, seeing here. Yeah. And hold on. Yeah. So this is basically a game that lets you identify social engineering attacks. So, although you might think it's common knowledge that, oh, I know what a social engineering attack looks like. But in contrary, a lot of people still fall for it regardless. There's also a brute force game you can play. It uses the guessing method or brute force method. Now I'll show you some bonus content, but I would like to disclaim the materials used in this bonus content. Agents of Tech does not condone the use of it for malicious or harmful activities, and it is only used for educational purposes. So I can go here. This would be an email spoofer. So let's say, I would say from Agents of Tech. To my email. I would say it's Word documents. I'll just randomly put as I try it. I'll try to make it more realistic. So I would, let's say, I will CC it to Mike, which is our current president. Then you could randomly type any bullshit, basically, like, oh no, I think I have to retype everything. Yep. You can basically fake any email with this. So usually it takes some time to send. So here. Since I could not verify where it came from, so it asked me to be aware of it. But sometimes, let's take a actual email. Let's say I'm gonna take my own email to my other email. Let's call it here. If an attacker finds out email of your relatives or friends, they could use it against you. Such as here. Because this is a verified email, it did not tell me it is suspicious. So this is quite actually dangerous. It also sent to our Agents of Tech email, and it will not be marked as spam or phishing because it is under my real email. Another one is Google dorking, as requested by one of the ideas in our Google form. I'll show you how the Google dorking works. Google dorking is basically a hacking method through Google by searching specific terms to gain access to unprotected logs, webcams, or basically databases. So I'll just show you one first. This is basically gaining access to any devices that are not secure. Let me try to. Oh shit. Oh, yeah, gotta clean that. Yeah, you have to beware with the thought of randomly installing things. So this is a camera somewhere in someone's house. This looks like someone maybe with a time zone. I'm not sure. This is basically the idea of it. Another one is you gain access to basically a lot of JS statements or unsecured databases. Yes. And then you can see all the password credentials. Usually, if you take enough time, you will actually find a lot of information on it by Google dorking. I can see the database name, user is root, and their password is just 12345. I'm not going to show that content. There are more ways to Google dork, but this will just be the few ways I'll be showing you. There's, yeah, that should be about it. So here comes the end of the cybersecurity awareness workshop. I hope you guys learned something from this workshop. Although it's only has been an hour, I hope the introductory topic has let you become more secure, more aware, security conscious, and maybe it sparked your interest in cybersecurity. If you would gladly scan the QR code, please do fill up the feedback form and provide your name. And afterwards, we will send we'll send most of everyone with the recording. So now it's open to questions.